In the shadowed annals of forgotten history, where the whispers of the dead echo louder than the roars of the living, there once reigned a king whose thirst for blood drowned entire kingdoms in crimson rivers. Imagine waking in the dead of night to the sound of spectral chains rattling your door, only to realize it's not a dream, but the vengeful spirit of a tyrant long buried yet never truly gone, clawing his way back to claim your soul as his next conquest. For this is the tale of King Vortigern the Bloodthirsty, a man whose crown was forged in the fires of betrayal and whose legacy haunts the misty highlands of ancient Britannia to this very day. Picture the year 452 AD, when the Roman legions had withdrawn from the Isles, leaving a vacuum of power that ambitious warlords scrambled to fill, and among them rose Vortigern, a chieftain from the rugged hills of what is now Wales, his eyes gleaming with an unholy ambition that seemed to burn brighter than the Beltane fires. His lineage traced back to the old Celtic kings who communed with druids and offered sacrifices to the gods of oak and thunder. But Vortigern was no mere heir to tradition, he was a devourer of it, a man who saw power not as a stewardship but as a ravenous beast to be fed with the lives of others. From his early days as a minor lord, he plotted in the dim-lit halls of his stone fortress, where tapestries woven with scenes of heroic battles hung like shrouds over the secrets he harbored. Whispering alliances with Saxon mercenaries from across the sea, those fierce warriors with braided beards and axes that sang through the air like harbingers of doom, promising them land in exchange for their blades to carve out his empire. Oh, how the people trembled at his name, for Vortigern's rise was marked by a trail of severed heads mounted on spikes along the ancient Roman roads, a grotesque display meant to instill fear. But little did they know that each drop of spilled blood was binding his fate to something far darker, an otherworldly force that lurked in the fog-shrouded moors and ancient barrows where the old god slumbered. As he ascended to the high kingship, uniting fractured tribes under his iron fist, Vortigern's palace became a labyrinth of opulence and terror, its grand halls echoing with the laughter of sycophants during feasts where roasted boar and honeyed mead flowed freely. Yet beneath the veneer lay dungeons where screams pierced the night like daggers. Prisoners, rival lords, disobedient vassals, even innocent peasants accused of treason, tortured for confessions that never came, their blood staining the flagstones in patterns that some whispered formed runes of ancient curses. Vortigern himself was a towering figure, his frame clad in furs and mail, a golden torque around his neck symbolizing his divine right, but his face, scarred from battles and etched with lines of perpetual suspicion, hid a soul tormented by visions that plagued his dreams. Ghostly apparitions of those he had slain, their ethereal forms drifting through his chambers, mouthing silent accusations that drove him to ever greater atrocities in a futile bid to silence them. Historical chronicles, those yellowed parchments preserved in monastic libraries, speak of his marriage to Rowena, the Saxon princess whose beauty was as sharp as her father's ambition, a union that sealed his pact with the invaders but sowed the seeds of his downfall, for Rowena brought with her not just warriors but whispers of pagan rites, blood oaths sworn under the full moon where sacrifices were made to Woden and Thunor, and Vortigern, enthralled by her, partook in these rituals, spilling the blood of captives on sacred altars to appease the gods and fortify his power. Yet each ritual only amplified the hauntings, as if the veil between worlds thinned with every life taken. Suspense built like storm clouds over the land as rumors spread of a cursed tower Vortigern commanded to be built on Dinah's Emeries, a hill fortified against enemies, but no matter how many stones his masons laid by day, the structure crumbled by night. As if the earth itself rejected his ambition, and in desperation, he consulted his druid advisors, those hooded figures versed in the stars and entrails of beasts, who divined that the ground must be sanctified with the blood of a fatherless child, a boy born without a mortal sire, to stabilize the foundations and ward off the malevolent spirits that sabotaged his works. Thus began the hunt for such a child, scouring the villages and forests, until they found young Merlin, the boy wizard of legend, son of a demon and a mortal woman, his eyes holding the wisdom of ages yet untouched by the corruption of power, dragged before the king in chains that seemed too heavy for his slight frame. And as Vortigern loomed over him, demanding the sacrifice, Merlin's voice rang out like a prophecy, revealing the true cause of the tower's fall, not spirits, but two dragons, red and white, locked in eternal combat beneath the hill, symbols of the British and Saxon peoples, their struggle mirroring the chaos Vortigern had unleashed. The king, skeptical yet intrigued, ordered the hill excavated, and lo, the dragons emerged, roaring flames that lit the sky, clashing in a frenzy that shook the earth, the red dragon ultimately prevailing, a omen that Vortigern's Saxon allies would one day betray him, but blinded by hubris, he ignored the warning, pressing on with his tower, now built atop the dragon's lair, infusing the structure with an arcane energy that amplified his bloodthirst, turning the fortress into a nexus of dark power where shadows moved of their own accord and whispers carried the voices of the damned. As years passed, Vortigern's reign descended into paranoia, his court a nest of intrigue where even his sons, Aurelius and Uther, plotted against him, sensing the madness that gripped their father, a madness fueled by nightly visitations from the ghosts of his victims. First the chieftains he had poisoned at banquets, their spectral forms appearing at his table, causing him to lash out at empty air, then the Saxon warriors he double-crossed, their axe-wielding phantoms haunting the battlements, and worst of all, the innocent child he had nearly sacrificed, Merlin's prophecy echoing in his mind like a curse that could not be unspoken. To quell these hauntings, Vortigern delved deeper into forbidden lore, summoning necromancers from the misty isles of Ireland, who taught him rituals involving the blood of virgins collected under the harvest moon, smeared on mirrors to commune with the dead, but each session only invited more entities, poltergeists that hurled goblets across rooms and etched warnings in frost on windows, foretelling his doom. The land suffered under his rule, crops withering as if the soil absorbed the blood of the slain and rejected life, villages plagued by apparitions that drove men mad, and in the highlands, travelers spoke of a ghostly army marching at dusk, led by a crowned figure on a skeletal horse, a harbinger of Vortigern's insatiable hunger for conquest that extended beyond the grave. Suspense mounted as betrayal brewed. His Saxon allies, led by Hengist and Horsa, Rowena's kin, grew resentful of his manipulations, plotting a massacre at a peace banquet known as the Night of the Long Knives, where hidden blades flashed in the torchlight, slaughtering British nobles in a spray of blood that soaked the rushes on the floor. But Vortigern escaped, fleeing to his cursed tower on Dinah's Emrys, where the dragon's residual magic warped reality, causing time to loop in nightmarish cycles, reliving his atrocities as holographic visions played out before him, the beheading of rivals, the burning of villages, the ritual sacrifices, all while the ghosts closed in, their translucent hands reaching for his throat. Isolated and besieged, Vortigern's power crumbled, his once mighty army deserting as tales of the haunted king spread like wildfire, and in his delirium, he wandered the tower's corridors, conversing with shadows that revealed truths he had long suppressed. His bloodthirst stemmed not from strength but from fear, a childhood terror of weakness instilled by a father who died in obscurity, driving him to amass power as a shield against oblivion. Yet each kill only hollowed him further, inviting the very darkness he sought to conquer. As the Saxon forces approached, torches blazing in the night, Vortigern barricaded himself in the highest chamber, surrounded by relics of his conquests, jeweled swords stained with rust-like blood, crowns pilfered from fallen kings, and a mirror that now reflected not his face but a grotesque, decaying visage, the true form of his soul. The ghosts amassed, a swirling vortex of ectoplasm that howled like a gale, accusing him in a cacophony of voices, and in a final act of desperation, he performed one last ritual, slashing his palm and offering his own blood to the dragons below, begging for their power to repel the invaders. But instead, the ground trembled, the tower cracking as the red dragon's spirit rose, not as an ally but as judgment, its fiery breath igniting the structure in an inferno that consumed everything. Vortigern's screams merging with the spectral chorus as flames licked his flesh, his body charring while his soul was torn asunder, trapped in eternal torment. Yet death was not the end, for in the ruins of Dinah's Emrys, travelers to this day report sightings of a bloodthirsty king, his ghostly form clad in tattered robes, wandering the misty hills, seeking new victims to feed his unending hunger, a cautionary tale of how power unchecked invites fear's ultimate embrace, where the haunted become the haunters, and the cycle of blood continues unbroken through the veils of time, reminding us that true dominion lies not in conquest but in the mastery of one's own darkness, lest it rise to claim us all in the dead of night.